radical positivity. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the podcast of The Ordinary Maverick. This is Ajay, your host, an ordinary maverick, sharing real life thoughts and experiences and maverick tips. If you haven't hit the subscribe button yet, please do so, and you will not miss another episode. Happy New Year to all fellow mavericks and my dear listeners. Hoping everyone is excited and looking forward to what the new year will hold for us. However, I am aware how it may be different for many. We are in different situations and sending positive thoughts to everyone out there that's struggling and working towards a turn in tide, so to speak. I have been in difficult situations too. Difficult ones where everything seemed hopeless. And then something kept me going, kept me trying in some ways, forcing me to see the bright side. I term that as radical positivity. It's the belief that life is good and that everything will work out. If one starts from that premise, then it's easier to start thinking and finding solutions. Doesn't come easy at all. Life throws up different challenges, but that's just it. That's what life does, throws out challenges. In fact, it's rightly said, change is the only constant. And in that change comes the problems, the various issues, some small, some big, or at least seemingly big. And of course, the other side also holds true. Good things happen too. Change is not always bad. See, that's where radical positivity comes in. Holding on to the thought and the belief that all will be well, that there will be a turn for the better. We have heard the saying, after the storm comes the sun, and every cloud has a silver lining. These are all motivational, no doubt, and sometimes do really help when one is down and out. Here's where an anchor is needed. Something that you can hold on to. Can be your own mind and belief, or a strong support system, family and friends that help us tide through the tough times. It's been varied for me in my own life. As I shared, things didn't always go smooth. They never do, right? But the radical positivity bit helped. As I recall my own experiences over the years, some of these bring a smile to my face. Granted, they were not funny at the time, but on reflection, I can see the funny side of it. And then, for some, I'm grateful that the time passed and we got through it. Regardless, the sum total of experiences is what makes for a fuller life. Like I remember the time when my laptop just gave up. It was my work one, an Apple MacBook, and had all my work data. Thankfully, I had a backup, but as it often happens, one fine morning, it just didn't start. Now, ordinarily, I would have gone to a store that would be able to check and hopefully repair the laptop. The problem was that we had just landed in Nigeria and there was no official Apple store there. I did try everything, reached out to people, Googled as much as possible, but after some time it was quite clear that I would not be able to get my laptop fixed there. At the time, it seemed like a huge problem in some ways. We get so dependent and connected to our technology that everything seems to have come to a standstill when these break down. That's how I felt. And as luck would have it, it was the most busiest time for me with several deadlines and I really needed my laptop. And then, out of the blue, a work trip came up for my wife. And she traveled overseas and was able to buy a new MacBook and get it for me. So just in a few days, the problem was solved. And in fact, solved for the better. I got a new laptop. When just a few days back, it was a panicky situation and I really had to hold it together and wait for the storms to settle. And it did. Keeping positive helped. We had another crazy experience, one where our hearts actually stopped. We were relocating from Nigeria to Bangladesh at the time. And our itinerary was via Istanbul and we were flying Turkish Airlines. Well, we checked in at Abuja, us and our two pet dogs who were traveling by cargo on the same flight. It was going to be a long trip, so we were a bit anxious to begin with for our two pet dogs. Although the reassurance from the flight attendant when we were on the plane that our two dogs had also boarded and were on the flight did help in alleviating some of the anxiety. After flying for over 6.5 hours, we arrived in Istanbul where we were, to transit for another 8 hours before our next flight to Dhaka. We were tired as the last few days were spent in winding up, packing, and meeting friends, saying goodbyes, etc. etc. Our first action on landing was to check on the dogs. We went to the airline counter and asked about our dogs and if they were fine. The person at the counter took all the details and started checking. Imagine our reaction when the person at the airline counter, after checking on his computer and speaking to someone on the phone, turns to us and says, "Please wait a minute, we are trying to locate the dogs." We were like, "What is going on?" but had no option but to wait. After a few more anxious minutes of waiting and the person at the counter speaking over the phone, he turned to us and spoke. And what he said made our hearts stop. In a totally expressionless face, he tells us, "I am sorry, but your dogs are not on the flight." What? He had to repeat this thrice for it to sink into our tired brains. And then reaction set in. We said, "How can that be? They had both boarded the flight in Abuja, and that was confirmed too." But whatever we said fell on deaf ears, at least that's what we felt. And the person just kept saying, "I'm sorry, your dogs are lost. I'm sorry, your dogs are lost. They are not on the flight." He sounded like a broken record. And then when we asked, "Where are they?" the answer was, "Well, they might still be in Abuja, or they might be someplace else. We don't know." We had visions of our two dogs locked up in the crate and left on the airport tarmac. And who knows in what conditions and where. It was the most crazy experience. I think we all aged at least 10 years in those few minutes. Again, we had to calm ourselves first to think through the situation and try and remain positive. When it seems hopeless, that's the time when you need to dredge up that radical positivity from inside. We started calling folks in Abuja, the team that had helped us with the dog's relocation, and then it all cleared up. Our dogs were in the Turkish cargo records and not in the Turkish airline record. Even though they were traveling on a regular flight with us on the same plane, their details and tracking was to be done by a different system via the cargo team. They weren't lost. Now, this is something which was a small thing, a basic thing, which the airline guy who was trying to check on our dogs should have known. But obviously he messed up something somewhere and gave us this kind of a shock. Our dogs were fine and also in transit in Istanbul. Hearing this, we finally settled. The spikes in our blood pressure went down. I'm sure if we hadn't kept our cool and managed the situation, who knows what would have happened. At the very least, there would have been a crazy showdown at the airport, and not to mention the impact of the anxiety on our health, body, and mind. Speaking of health, the pandemic brought health to the forefront like never before. And that was another time I really needed my radical positivity thinking to the forefront. My family also needed to keep the radical positivity going. We found ourselves, like many others, stuck in different parts of the world. The global lockdown left us with little choice. Our younger daughter was due to graduate from university that year, and we were all set to go and attend and cheer her on at her graduation ceremony. And then all plans got cancelled, the graduation got cancelled, we were down in the dumps, and it was tough on our daughters too. Just like it was for all of us fellow Mavericks. And then radical positivity set in. We geared up and got into action and decided to do something that's exciting that will lift our spirits. And we put together a grand show for the graduation. We reached out to family, friends, and created an unforgettable, one-of-a-kind movie, stitching together different memories over the years, spending time pulling out the various video files, getting everyone to send in video snippets. Must say, the initial period of the lockdown for us on a personal front was made a bit easier with this goal we now had to create the best virtual graduation party ever. We were learning, as obviously none of us had any experience on this. But we pulled through, and I must say, without bragging, that it indeed was one of the best virtual parties we had and a fabulous graduation. We had family and friends joined from all over the globe, toast raised across continents, and yes, while an in person graduation experience is what we had wished for, but the virtual one was one we shall remember for a lifetime. Often, radical positivity is encountered with the feeling that one is not facing up to reality. Yes, things are not going right, it seems hopeless, but here's the thing: believing in radical positivity is not in any way linked to putting on blinkers or running away from reality. It is, in fact, just the opposite. It's about the mindset and in believing that things will turn for the better. So, not running away, just changing the way one is thinking and moving forward. Remember the Maverick formula and the key components of falling forward? That's what this is aligned to. As we step into the new year, my dear fellow Mavericks, let's hold on to the radical positivity thought and put it in practice. And remember the three core elements of our Maverick formula. 1. Go with your gut. 2. Be true. And 3. Fall forward. That's what keeps us going strong. Wishing everyone a very happy new year and compliments of the season. Do keep writing your comments and sharing your feedback via our Instagram at The Ordinary Maverick or through our hashtag The Ordinary Maverick. I love hearing from you. This is Ajay signing off and wishing you have an amazing day, a super amazing year. Keep well, stay safe. Credits. This podcast series was put together as a team effort from the Bhardwaj family. Concept, design, title, researchers and reviewers: Ajay, Sanjana, Avantika and Niharika Bhardwaj. Script, Sanjana. Cover design, Niharika. All rights reserved.